When a fighting game character who is technically leagues more powerful in the lore than the rest of the roster, they can withhold their power when fighting to see how mortals can keep up on an even playing field. And one trope surrounding this that we see but I don't ever hear people discuss is when their health bar is depleted, instead of being knocked unconscious and yelling "No!", they have a nonchalant knockout animation instead where they're casually reclining because they're either bored or they've seen enough to impress them. There could also be different audio or visual indicators, but the most famous examples are from games by Arc System Works where they love doing the casual defeat pose. Regardless, I want to look at the fighting game characters who can never truly get knocked out or die, leading to some interesting visuals or audio cues when they should be knocked out. I'll mainly be judging them on how they react to being beat in a fight, since that tends to be the funniest thing about them, but it will be a case-by-case basis since every game does it differently. And no restrictions on this one. There's really only a handful of series that do this, but they do it well. Now, let's stand up to the top 10 fighting game characters that can't be KO'd. Number 10, Celica Mercury from Blazblue. Blazblue does the fake knockout the most of any fighting game, and Celica doesn't even do it because she has almighty power, she just has a lot of protection. Since Celica is a healer rather than a fighter and gets lost a lot, she needs to be protected at all costs. So this version of her was given a replica of an ancient robot protector thing, long story, named Minerva, who's programmed to automatically protect Celica the instant she's attacked, along with attacking on behalf of her. Also, this version of Celica is from another point in time, since the main one walked outside the dimension when no one was looking and accidentally erased herself from existence because she got lost, so it's proven that she needs the help. Once again, long story, but the point is, Minerva is the offense, defense, and makes sure there's no impact against Celica. If Celica is supposed to be flung through the air, nope, Minerva cradles her. Slammed against the wall, nope, Minerva hits it first for Celica to hit a familiar surface instead. How about electrocution? No, Minerva is the lightning rod. How about standard block damage? Once again, no. Minerva's got those big ol' hands to protect her. And all this culminates with her KO pose, where as you would guess, she can't get knocked out because Minerva is ever protecting. When they fall, Celica just slowly lands on Minerva, and when KO'd, Minerva is face down, but Celica is just sitting on her like, wake up please? The opponent has enough respect not to clonk her on the head too now that she's unprotected, but regardless, Celica is protected from the KO. She technically has an eyes closed knockdown pose if she lands the other way ass up, and her status is unclear at this point, but considering the lore and the other pose, she probably just landed a bit hard and will open her eyes in just a second. Just a second. Give her some space. And on the flip side, when she knocks you out, she tries to prevent the KO from happening to you by healing you immediately because she's a nice lady like that. That being said, Minerva has other plans.
Celica, win!
Number 9, Akari from The Last Blade. At a glance, Akari doesn't fit with the theme of this list. She's a girl who knows magic and summoning, with some very questionable fellows being summoned, and when she's hit at low life, she gets knocked down like everyone else in this game, and that's true a majority of the time. However, there is a standard KO scenario in The Last Blade where Akari avoids consequences. For any of the sharp weapon users, which is most of the cast, if you KO your opponent with a strong hit or a super on the winning round, you get the semi-graphic animation of the opponent being cut in half as they fall down. The devs thought that would be too graphic for Akari since she's younger than the rest of the cast, so to still give you that special KO pose against her, the animation starts as if Akari's top half is going to be sliced off, but then she just turns into a paper doll, revealing it was just a body double that she made, and she peeks in from off screen to be insulted that you just tried to kill her, and then she runs off. Technically, she didn't get hit by that last blow, so she could have kept fighting, but obviously that would be unfair if she was immune to certain hits at low health, so this was her forfeiting. She essentially says, "You can't fire me, I quit." And the paper doll man was not random either. In her moveset, she can turn into her opponent briefly by sending out her magical paper doll, Hogure, who's also a secret character to play in the arcade mode, where he just becomes whichever opponent you're facing next on the ladder, which I covered on my Mimic character list. Also, on the KO, is the implication that the paper doll clone was just filling in for Akari on the killing hit and she got out of there in time, or did she coincidentally do the whole paper doll trick before the match for fun, and it just so happened to be in the match where she would have been killed? Either way, Akari sure gets a lot of mileage out of that paper. Number 8. Nago Ryuki from Guilty Gear. Nago Ryuki combines so many cool things. He's a vampire samurai with a blood-sucking sword and a mechanized mask. What's not to like? And on top of it all, he's immortal. Being one of the 2 vampires on the roster, they both do the same thing when defeated or just knocked down in general, where they're just reclining. His arm is forming a makeshift headrest and he's got one knee up. It's the pose of someone watching TV on their couch. The other vampire in the series that we'll get to later did the pose first, so I can't credit Nago Ryuki for doing it first on screen, but it still adds more to his cool factor. Nothing gets to this guy. And when he gets up from this pose, he rises like Dracula getting out of his coffin. As for his almighty power, Nago Ryuki never really planned to actively fight at this point in history. In the story of Guilty Gear Strive, the villain Happy Chaos woke Nago Ryuki up from his multi-hundred-year hibernation and used him as a puppet until Nago Ryuki broke free, so him reclining when he loses is the implication he knows that he was never meant to be fighting right now. He should be sleeping. So once you've given him a good match and landed enough hits on him, he taps out. You've impressed him enough. This was just a friendly yet intense spar. Number 7. Saitama in One Punch Man, a hero nobody knows. The One Punch Man fighting game is your typical anime arena fighter. You'll probably have fun with your friends a couple of times, but the only thing that keeps you interested are the characters that you like in it doing more than what they did in the anime or manga. The most interesting thing they had to deal with was how the main character Saitama gets knocked out. The whole gag of his character is he accidentally trained to become the strongest man in the world, and can defeat anybody with one punch, much to his dismay since he never gets a good fight out of it. As such, he's always a late arrival to the fight in both the story and the game, giving the other strong characters a chance to fight on a level playing field. Once the Saitama timer reaches 0 during the fight, he arrives to the arena, and unless you avoid him, he defeats on contact. But if you're in a scenario where 2 Saitamas are clashing from each team, then he does the equivalent of regular damage to himself, and whichever one has their life bar depleted first, it's not a knockout, but rather, the defeated Saitama realizes there's a sale at the grocery store that ends soon, and he bolts off, which is a classic joke from the manga, so it makes sense. Good way to get the character out of there, and if you were hoping to play as him legitimately, they did add a character called Dream Saitama, which is just him from his own dream where he's at the power level of everyone else and can fight endlessly. I like that. That's a clever idea. I just wish this game was better.
Consecutive normal punches.
The bargain's almost over. Take over for me, will ya?
I'm not a hero because I want your approval. I don't really care about your approval. I do it because I want to.
Number 6. Nine the Phantom from Blazblue. Nine carries herself like a character who is overly powerful. The walk cycle, the teleporting, the control of the elements, the pose in general. Her dashes just remove her from existence for a second. This character is brimming with all-powerful power. She allegedly is the strongest sorcerer in the world, citation needed, so her losing the fight just means she's all set with you. You've done something to make her stop fighting, but I'm not quite sure what. I'll just go with that she's seen enough of your power, and now she wants wants to give you ominous warnings about what happens if you lose against the real villains. When you beat her in the arcade story, she tells you that you have to be ready to take down the final boss. So to exemplify that she's just a test boss, beating her shows you the most stylish lost poses. If she falls leaning forward, it's the more snooty humph pose with her hand on her chin. I don't know if this is disappointment in us or if she's actually not happy that she lost. However, her lean back lost pose has her smiling and doing a hat tip, where I feel like this is a job well done. This might be my favorite KO pose on this list. Like, this woman was just throwing 3 elements of nature at me a second ago, and now she's doing some sexy pose at me saying, hey, good job, guy. So even though we may not be able to truly knock her out, getting this KO pose against her feels like a bigger win than usual. Number 5. Beerus in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Dragon Ball FighterZ has a plot point that there's a power dampener device putting everyone at the same power level in the story. However, they establish that gods are unaffected, so that means that Beerus, god of destruction, is just fighting everyone because he's bored, as he does normally. A single flick is enough to send anyone flying, so he withholds greatly, but it's also a fighting game, so firing off his destruction balls is not gonna obliterate anyone. So he knows how to hold back his almighty power, but what about when he loses? They can't just have a standard mortal beat him. Well, his KO animation does have him flop on the ground like any other character, but they add a voice line explaining why he's being KO'd. He'll either say, "You've gotten better," implying that he's seen enough of your power and he has no reason to test it further, or, "I don't feel like fighting anymore," implying that he's bored or tired.
I don't feel like fighting anymore.
I still wish he had some special knockdown animation like him getting up right away and doing his air recline pose, or just something with his eyes open, but the line is sufficient. He also has a few other reaction lines of him getting hit by some supers implying they don't really hurt him. My favorite might be where he gets hit by Boo's cookie beam and says something like, "I've never been turned into a cookie before."
This is the first time I've been eaten.
He just sounds so intrigued there, and he's right. If it's not lethal to you, yeah, what does it feel like being a cookie? Beerus may get bested in battle in this game, but remember, he's just observing firsthand.
Don't get too cocky.
Number 4. Elizabeth in Persona 4 Arena. While Persona 4 Arena has humans fighting other humans with extraordinary powers via their personas, Elizabeth herself is not human. She's an attendant in the Velvet Room, a place that exists between dream and reality, a place where these personas are managed, a place with people that only look like people, but their powers are beyond our comprehension. That being said, I learned all my Persona lore from the fighting game, so Persona fans can feel free to correct my summary in the comments. I mainly just needed to bring it up to explain why Elizabeth won't be knocked down so easily. Elizabeth is essentially there to test the abilities of the other fighters' personas. She's never in any real danger since she knows the ins and outs of every persona. She just wants to see if you can handle tough opponents with your newfound powers. And since she's involved in the persona picking process, she can technically have any persona, but for this game, she chooses Thanatos, who is able to use elemental spells, along with her own tarot card spells. And if you've properly bested her, or at least shown her that you know how to use a persona, she happily admits defeat by lying on her stomach and smiling at a job well done. I like how she had fun during this. She seems genuinely happy fighting and at the result of losing, in part because she now knows that you can win because of her.
Inexperienced as I am, I have confidence that I will be a difficult opponent.
Number 3. T-1000 in Mortal Kombat 1. T-1000 is a liquid metal killing machine that can shapeshift into any human, non-human, and sharp object. Famously, he's from Terminator 2 as the unkillable antagonist, and his inclusion in Mortal Kombat 1 was a follow-up to Arnold's Terminator model being a guest in the previous game. When you killed the Terminator in that game, it revealed the endoskeleton underneath, which more or less means he's just going to keep on moving when that that skeleton is intact, but the game never acknowledged that when he loses, only when he wins. In Mortal Kombat 1 though, T-1000 has a very interesting way of getting fatality. Since he's just acting human to blend into society, his facial expressions are less of legitimate pain and more of him just acting so he can get the attack over with, or not even reacting at all. And sometimes it's this look of inquisitiveness, like, that's an interesting new feeling. And no screaming, just the action of going through it all. But the unbeatable part is when he's torn in half or dismembered or whatever else happens during a finishing move and the opponent is doing their win pose, he instead starts to liquefy again, implying he's just gonna put himself back together. Like, is the opponent screwed now? This is one of those things where you don't think about what happens after the win screen. There is a specific way to kill him, and ripping off his head is not the way. I also like that because he's made of liquid metal, when something internal needs to be ripped out for the animation, it just turns into a metal glob or metal-shaped skeleton. Does he also do that to feign being human, or is the will to rip out skulls so strong in the Mortal Kombat universe that fighters just force it into existence? Either way, I like how you're just ripping out chunks of metal that are going back to him in a few minutes.
Fatality. T-1000 wins.
Number 2, Rachel Alucard from Blazblue. I strongly associate Rachel with this trope, as you could tell from her ranking. I got into Blazblue before Guilty Gear back in the Continuum Shift days, so she was my introduction to this trope. What really sells the whole motif is Rachel seems bored the whole time. Everything about her face and voice lines and body language just ring boredom. She's a vampire who had a job watching over the universe from the outside, but she needed to intervene since she couldn't just let the villain Terumi run amok, so she had to become a bystander. However, since she was above the dimension from the start and is an immortal vampire, she's durable enough to outlast anything. She technically lost some of her power as she became a bystander, but she carries herself as a noble in battle. Anytime she's knocked down, she uses her shape-shifting cat Nago as a makeshift chair, and she looks very unamused. Just the feet are up, and she's looking at you like, that's it. I feel the smugness in this pose so much. The actual lore behind this is Nago and her Baki absorb all the damage for her, so it's unknown how she might truly react to getting punched in the face, but we'll never get an opportunity to see it since they are quick, so her landing on Nago is also so she isn't even at risk of taking fall damage. The best part is when she gets up from this, she snaps her fingers to have Nago turn back into her parasol, which is one of her main ways of fighting. Her other fall down animation has her land belly down, and it turns into her taking a brief snooze with Nago as a giant pillow. Perhaps you could look at this as her actually being overpowered enough to go unconscious, but I think it's more that you bored her to sleep. She was losing interest in the fight, so if you think you got the best of her, nope, just time for a voluntary nap. She looks so peaceful here. And when she wins, she taunts you by sitting on a throne. So you can't escape this Rachel Alucard scorn. When you win, when you lose, when you draw.
Rachel, win!
For number 1, I gotta go with the character who established the casual defeat pose. Not sure if he was the first, but he certainly has the most recognizable pose. Number 1, Slayer from Guilty Gear. Slayer is the original vampire in Guilty Gear. Without him, Nago Ryuki never would have gotten turned into a vampire, and he would have never learned the art of the nonchalant KO. Nago Ryuki's KO pose is identical to Slayer's, which Slayer has been doing since the Guilty Gear XX games. Just lying horizontally, hand on cheek, other hand on hip, one knee up, and the brow is furrowed. I don't know if he's annoyed or pleased or just a bit pensive regarding your barbaric fighting style, but what we do know is he's way too strong to truly get hurt by you, so this is him showing you that he's seen enough when fighting, either because he's impressed or just a bit bored. As discussed in my Brawler video, he puts his money where his pose is with his fighting style. He has to pull his punches to just be a single punch punch since his immortal vampire powers are way stronger than anything else. He makes it fair with the power limit, and he keeps it classy with a very refined fisticuff punch or heel to the face, one clean hit at a time. There's one extra factor though that has elevated Slayer compared to the other characters here, and that's the series' instant kills, especially in the Guilty Gear Xrd games. Instant kills are super moves that KO the opponent on the potential winning round, and while they were cool in the older games, the Xrd games stepped up the animations immensely to show the opponent absolutely getting annihilated, some of which show a close-up on the face in confusion or terror or something else funny, or having a special interaction with the user, and that's where Slayer's inability to be hurt really shines. Instead of that look of fear, he keeps a stoic look. He's like, okay, this is just a harder hit than your other hits. Or when a character gets a bigger window to react, instead of butting heads, he tells them to do the most they can, like when Sin and the opponent have a conversation before he takes them through some rock formations. Or when Slayer has a chance to speak when May's about to shoot the opponent out of a cannon, he's more concerned that his beard will get messed up and asks her to shoot him towards where a friend lives. And probably the most famous, Dizzy's instant kill where she has to stop her laser from being aimed at the opponent so it just narrowly misses them and destroys some stuff in the distance, leading to a funny shocked face by the opponent and a surrender. Slayer though gives it a smile and a hand up, like, good show, I guess I got nothing else to see. No idea if that would have killed him or if he would have toughed it out, but his reaction is great. All these interactions give room for creativity beyond just a fun KO pose. Slayer probably would have gone number 1 without them, but they still helped cement him as the top fighting game character who can't be KO'd.
道草を食ったがなかなか楽しめたい
Slayer, win, straight.
Now, what did you think? Did all these invincible fighting game characters show you the best way to lose, or are there some other fighting game characters who could last just as long? And who are some of your favorite unbeatable fighting game characters? Whether I discussed them or not, let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.